Welcome to Doomsday Prepper, where we take survival to the extreme. Today we're tackling one of the most dangerous places on Earth, Snake Island. Located off the coast of Brazil, this island is home to thousands of golden lancehead vipers, some of the deadliest snakes in the world. No permanent human settlements exist here, and Brazilian law forbids civilians from stepping foot on its shores. But let's say you find yourself stranded here with no way out for 10 days. Could you survive? Stick around as we break down your best survival strategies. And before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on our extreme survival guides. Now let's dive in. Day 1. Assessing the situation and finding a safe zone. The moment you set foot on Snake Island, your top priority is securing a safe location. Golden lanceheads are everywhere, hiding under rocks, in trees, and slithering through the underbrush. The first mistake would be wandering aimlessly. Instead, move cautiously and avoid dense vegetation where snakes thrive. Your best bet is to locate higher ground, away from fallen logs and thick foliage. Snakes tend to hunt in areas with good cover, so an open, rocky outcrop could be the safest option. Just make sure it's not exposed to the elements. Before setting up a temporary shelter, conduct a thorough inspection of the area. Use a stick to prod the ground ahead of you, ensuring no hidden threats. Water is another immediate concern. With no freshwater sources on the island, you'll need to collect rainwater or find moisture-rich plants. If you have a plastic sheet or even clothing, you can use the condensation method overnight. Dehydration sets in fast, so this needs to be addressed early. By the end of day 1, you should have a safe resting spot and a strategy to avoid snake encounters. The key is to minimize movement and conserve energy while staying hyper-aware of your surroundings. Day 2. Building a shelter without attracting snakes. Now that you've found a safe zone, it's time to build a shelter. But the wrong setup could attract predators. Snakes love warm, enclosed spaces, so avoid piling up leaves or using logs as walls. Instead, opt for an elevated structure if possible. A hammock setup would be ideal, but if that's not an option, construct a raised sleeping platform using sturdy branches and rocks. For added protection, create a perimeter with loose rocks. Snakes dislike unstable surfaces and are less likely to cross a jagged barrier. You can also use fire as a deterrent, but be extremely cautious. It's easy to start an uncontrolled wildfire in this environment. Instead of a large flame, consider smoldering embers to maintain warmth and keep creatures at bay. Another crucial factor is your body heat. Nighttime temperatures can drop, and without insulation, hypothermia becomes a risk. Use dry leaves to create a buffer beneath you, and layer any available materials for warmth. By the end of day 2, you should have a solid shelter and a better understanding of your surroundings. The goal is to stay put and avoid unnecessary exposure to the island's countless dangers. Day 3. Locating food sources without risking your life. By now, hunger is setting in. While golden lanceheads primarily feed on birds, their presence has made other wildlife scarce. Finding food without stepping into danger is your next challenge. One option is foraging. Edible plants like seaweed can be found near the shoreline, but don't expect a feast. Insects are a safer bet. Crickets, grubs, and ants provide essential protein with little risk. Use a stick to turn over rocks carefully and collect what you can. Fishing is another possibility. If you have any string or wire, you can set up a primitive fishing rig along the coast. Tide pools may also hold small marine creatures, such as crabs or mussels, but be wary of sharp rocks and potential predators. Avoid hunting birds unless absolutely necessary. Their movement attracts snakes, and the last thing you want is a viper mistaking you for its next meal. Stick to low-risk food sources and conserve energy. By day 3, food intake will be minimal, but survival is about efficiency, not comfort. Focus on sustenance and avoid unnecessary risks. Day 4. Navigating the island without getting bitten. Now that you've settled into a basic survival routine, it's time to explore more of the island for additional resources. But every step you take could be your last if you aren't careful. Golden lanceheads are ambush predators, meaning they remain hidden and strike with deadly precision. The first rule of movement: never rush. Move deliberately, scanning every inch of the ground before placing your foot down. Use a long stick to prod areas ahead of you, especially dense foliage, rock crevices, and fallen logs. If possible, stick to open terrain where visibility is better. But don't let your guard down, as golden lanceheads are also skilled climbers, often lurking in trees to hunt birds. Always look up before settling in one spot. If you must step over an obstacle, never place your foot down blindly. Step on top first to ensure there are no hidden threats. If you encounter a snake, freeze immediately. Sudden movements can trigger a strike. Slowly back away while keeping your eyes on it. Avoid aggressive gestures and never attempt to kill a viper, it only increases your risk. The goal for day 4 is survival through minimal movement. The less you expose yourself, the better your odds of making it through the week. Day 5. Dealing with injuries and snake bites. No matter how careful you are, injuries happen. On Snake Island, Even a minor wound can turn deadly due to infection, and a snakebite almost guarantees a grim fate. If bitten, do not panic. Panicking increases your heart rate, spreading the venom faster. Instead, immediately sit down and keep the affected limb immobilized at or below heart level. If you have a cloth or bandage, wrap it lightly above the bite to slow venom movement, but avoid cutting off circulation. Do not attempt to suck out the venom or cut the wound open. These survival myths only make things worse. Instead, focus on conserving energy and minimizing movement to delay venom absorption. Hydration is critical, so if possible, drink small sips of water. For other injuries, cleanliness is key. If you get a cut or scrape, rinse it with fresh water if available, then cover it to prevent dirt and bacteria from getting in. Infection in a place like this can be just as dangerous as a venomous bite. By day 5, exhaustion is setting in and your body is weakening. Survival now depends on avoiding injury at all costs and keeping your body in the best condition possible. Day 6, mental toughness and staying focused. At this stage, physical exhaustion and isolation are taking a serious toll. Your body is weak from hunger, dehydration, and the stress of constant vigilance. But in survival situations, your mindset is just as important as your physical condition. The key to making it through the final stretch is sticking to a routine. Even small simple tasks like reinforcing your shelter, gathering water, or checking your surroundings can help keep your mind occupied. Avoid dwelling on fear or despair. Mental exhaustion can lead to careless mistakes, which is the last thing you can afford on Snake Island. Another critical factor is controlling panic. Every rustle in the brush, every unexpected movement will keep your nerves on edge. But if you give in to fear, you might act impulsively, increasing your risk of a fatal mistake. Take slow, deep breaths, focus on one task at a time, and remind yourself that every hour survived is another step closer to making it out alive. By the end of day 6, your biggest enemy isn't just the snakes, it's your own mind. Stay disciplined, stay focused, and keep pushing forward. You're almost there. Day 7, escape and final survival strategy. If you've survived this long, you're in the home stretch. But survival isn't just about enduring, it's about getting out. The best case scenario is that a rescue team has been searching for you, but if no one arrives, it's time to take action. Swimming off the island is an absolute last resort. The waters around Snake Island are treacherous, filled with strong currents and potential predators. Your best bet is to attract attention. If you have any reflective material, like a metal object, a broken screen, or even wet fabric, you can use it to signal passing boats by flashing sunlight. If you built a fire earlier, now is the time to generate smoke. Create a green wood signal fire to produce thick, visible plumes that can be seen from a distance. If you have the energy, scout the shoreline for any debris or makeshift raft materials. Large driftwood or broken fishing gear may give you an opportunity to float safely away from the island. However, every move must be calculated. Survival is about patience and strategy. By the end of day 7, if you're still alive, you've proven one thing: you're tougher than most. Few could survive a week on Snake Island, but with the right skills, mindset, and caution, it's possible. Day 8, finding a safe sleeping spot. After a full week on Snake Island, exhaustion is overwhelming. But even with fatigue setting in, one of the most critical survival factors remains: where you sleep. A single mistake during the night could mean a deadly snake bite while you rest. The first rule is elevation. Sleeping on the bare ground is an invitation for disaster. If you haven't already, build an elevated sleeping platform. Use sturdy branches and vines to create a raised bed at least 2 feet off the ground. This keeps you away from ground-dwelling snakes and minimizes your risk. Choose your sleeping spot carefully. Avoid dense vegetation, fallen logs, and rocky areas, as these are prime hiding spots for golden lanceheads. Instead, find a clearing with minimal foliage. Before lying down, check above you. These vipers are excellent climbers, and the last thing you want is one dropping from an overhanging branch. Fire can be an extra layer of protection if you still have one burning. While it won't necessarily scare away all snakes, it can help keep some of them at bay. However, don't rely on it completely. Your best defense is smart positioning. With just 2 more days to survive, staying vigilant even in sleep is key. Day 9, avoiding dehydration and maintaining strength. By now, your body is running on fumes. Dehydration is the biggest threat. Without enough water, your muscles weaken, your mind fogs, and your ability to react to danger diminishes. Even a single misstep in this environment can mean death. If you haven't found fresh water, you must act now. Look for rainwater trapped in leaves, tree crevices, or rock depressions. If you have any cloth, soak it in damp areas and wring out the moisture. Digging for groundwater near the base of slopes or in shaded areas might yield results if the soil is damp enough. Coconut palms, if available, can be a lifesaver. Young coconuts provide both hydration and electrolytes, helping to prevent exhaustion. If coconuts aren't an option, certain vines and plant stems can be cut to release small amounts of drinkable water. Energy conservation is crucial. Move slowly and only when necessary. Limit unnecessary activity, stay in shaded areas, and avoid overexerting yourself. Every calorie burned must be replenished, and without food, your body is breaking down muscle for energy. Survival today is all about rationing your last reserves of strength. Tomorrow it's time for the final push. Day 10. Escape in the final test of survival. You've made it to day 10. Now it's time to get off Snake Island. Waiting forever isn't an option. If no rescue has come, you must make your own way out. Your best bet is signaling. If a passing boat is in sight, now is the time to use any reflective object to flash sunlight toward them. If you still have a fire, produce heavy smoke by burning damp leaves and green branches. This creates a thick, dark plume that's visible from miles away. If no help arrives, you may have to consider a raft escape. Search the shoreline for any driftwood, vines, or floating debris that could be lashed together. Test its buoyancy in shallow water before committing to a journey. An unstable raft is worse than no raft at all. Swimming is a last resort. The waters around Snake Island are dangerous, with strong currents and predatory marine life. If no other option remains, conserve your energy, time your departure carefully, and swim along the current rather than against it. By the end of day 10, one thing is certain. You are no longer just a survivor. You are a legend. Surviving 10 days on Snake Island is a challenge most wouldn't dare attempt. But whether you're facing venomous vipers or real-world disasters, the same core principles apply. Awareness, patience, and adaptability are the keys to survival. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more extreme survival content. And drop a comment. What's the next survival scenario you want to see? Stay sharp, stay safe, and as always, keep prepping.